Hey folks, Matt from artoftheimage.com. This is my Nikon 50mm f1.4G, which if you've been following along, I picked this up. I was trying to decide between the 50mm f1.2 AIS, which has to go back to B&H. It was in for review, and I was trying to decide between this, which I love, and an f1.4D, which gives me the added advantage of an autofocus lens. The f1.2 is a manual focus lens. And I decided that between the price, I got this for 200 Canadian, picking up an f1.2, be lucky to get one for around 600 in good shape. So a third of the price for 2/3 less of a stop, and the ability to have autofocus. So between price and autofocus, this was the way I went for now. I love that f1.2, and I will probably be picking one up at some point, but I have the freedom of not needing it at the moment, so I will wait until I find a really good deal on one. Now, build quality, 50 f1.4D, not as nice as the 50 f1.2. Not much is as nice as the 50 f1.2, but it's fine. It's decent. It does have an aperture, clickable aperture ring, which is great for video, and great for those of you that just like to have a manual aperture ring, the ability to do that. So that's what I went with. I've also owned the 50 f1.8. I don't know that I had the 50 f1.4D. I was trying to remember if I've owned that or not. But what am I saying? I was trying to remember if I'd owned it previously when I had it for weddings. Because I know I've owned the 50 f1.8G and the 50 f1.4G and the 50 f1.8D. So this is very comparable in build quality to the 50 f1.8D. But all of them are nice lenses. But what I wanted to point out to you, similar to the video I just did on the 85 f1.4 versus f1.8, is that the f1.8 is actually a little bit sharper. And as far as bokeh quality goes, we're talking about the G's here now. I'm specifically talking about the f1.4G versus the f1.8G. So the f1.8G is actually a little sharper, and the bokeh quality is about on par. So you're only paying for speed. And again, this is what I want to drive home with these type of videos, is that a lot of people think, especially old school thinkers. I know my dad was always like this. If something was more expensive, it had to be better. And that's not necessarily the case. When you compare the 50 f1.4G versus the 50 f1.8G, the f1.8G is actually sharper, and it's less expensive, and the bokeh quality is on par with the f1.4G. What you're getting with the f1.4 is speed. And if you need that, by all means, I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying, don't be buying the f1.4G thinking it's a better lens. It's a faster lens. Let's have a look here. This is the numbers from DxO Mark for their evaluations on the performance of these lenses. So we're looking at an overall score of 35 for the f1.4G to 33 for the f1.8G. But tellingly, if we drop down to the sharpness category, the f1.8G is 22 is what it scores at, versus the f1.4G scores at 21. So it's a tad sharper. Now, arguably, you could argue those are on par, but still, the nod to the f1.8G. Now, where the f1.4G starts to pull ahead is in things such as transmission distortion and chromatic aberration. But again, these are all so close that it's practically non-existent. They're practically on par. These are scored on Nikon's D810, which is currently Nikon's best sensor, latest and greatest, in the sense of the highest resolution, and I would argue the best performing sensor. I really like that camera. But you're looking at a 36 megapixel, excellent full frame sensor, and we're down to winning by a point for the f1.8G on sharpness, and all the rest of them being so close as to almost be negligible. So for me, that says that the better value is the f1.8G. So if you need the speed, if you need the 2/3 of a stop faster lens, light gathering ability and depth of field, then by all means, pay the extra money and get the f1.4G. But the f1.8G is every bit as sharp, if not sharper, and every bit as good a performer as far as bokeh quality. But for value, you're getting better value out of the f1.8G. If you need the f1.4, then you need the f1.4. Just don't buy the f1.4 thinking you're getting a better lens. You're simply getting a faster lens. What do you guys think? Have you shot with both? Does your findings, your results back this up? I've shot both, and my results do, and I've seen quite a few other people's online reading reviews that the same thing. Their results back this up. I know Neil Van Niekerk on Tangents, he said essentially the same thing. Just as sharp, just as good bokeh, just paying for speed. I'll put the link below if I can find that, or if I remember to. But you can also just search for Neil Van Niekerk on his Tangents blog. He's a very good, accomplished shooter. He's been shooting weddings and portraits for years. He's got some very interesting stuff on there as well. But I want to know what you guys think. f1.4G, f1.8G. Is it worth spending the extra money on the 50s here? Or are you happy with the f1.8G and you think it's the better value? Leave your comments below. Let's discuss the two a bit. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon here at artoftheimage.com.